listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Back here on Radio Row inside the Mall of America, this is Zach Gelb right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. You can see Brian Billick on NFL Network's NFL Playbook Super Bowl 52 special tonight, right when we get off air at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and throughout the week on Super Bowl Live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Now joining us, Super Bowl winning head coach, that's Brian Billick. Brian, how are you?
I am doing great.
A big reason why I wanted you on is because you know how this is. With Doug Peterson going into this year, people saying he has no shot, he can't be a successful coach, and he's pushed every right button this year. Just evaluate the coaching job, because I think it's one of the great unexpected success stories in the league this year.
Yeah, I'm worthy of Coach of the Year honors. I mean, if for no other reason, when you lose your quarterback, when we went to the Super Bowl, we made quarterback change but it was in week 4. You had the entire season to kind of get into that rhythm. Week 14, this is thrust on them. They visibly change the offense to match what they're going to get out of the quarterback position. I think it's a brilliant job. And Doug, yeah, you're right. Of course, there's always criticisms coming in and out. But Doug's done a phenomenal job. He's a former player that's got the perspective. He's got the players believing. He's got a good staff around him. It's a phenomenal job.
And there's really no ego with him, because there's been times this year where he could have said, yeah, a lot of people doubted me, and trust me, we asked him those questions a bunch of times, and he never would do it. He always made it about his team, and even this year when they've lost a lot of pieces, he still talked about and really stressed the concept of team.
Yeah, remember, this guy was basically a career backup, so he understands that kind of selfless approach. Good man, obviously, very competent. Been in the league a long time, and I think it resonates with the players. They recognize that okay, this is a guy, this was a journeyman, this was a worker, this is a guy that had to fight for everything he's ever gotten, understands kind of what we're going through, and obviously come at a great mentorship of Andy Reid. So, yeah, like you said, he pressed all the right buttons, and a very humble guy, and that resonates with the players.
And also, when they were looking at Carson, they were saying, is there too many voices with him? Because you have DiFilippo, you have Frank Reich, and also Doug Peterson, a lot of quarterbacks, but all those guys give their input, and they all gel, and they're all on the same page.
And the fact that, like you say, and particularly Doug, in the sense that he played in this league, so that does allow you, Frank the same way, a subtle level of communication. I coached my entire career, but you can cut through a little bit of that when you've had those shared experiences. So Carson Wentz could have the confidence, as does Nick Foles, that when Doug Peterson says, well, this is kind of what you're going to see, or this is what you knew, that it's, okay, this isn't just coach speak, this guy has done that.
How important was it when Carson went down that Doug really stepped up and embraced that leadership role? That's his job to do it, but he made that a point in the media, because guys could have got down on themselves because they knew what Carson was. They all bought into the Super Bowl dream, and Doug really took that leadership role and said, all right, if there was ever a time to lead men, now's the time.
And that's what you get paid to do, basically. And let's give the organization and Harry Roseman credit for having a Nick Foles there and expending the resources, not just going out and getting, identifying, but because there's a lot of people. I remember Bill Polian always talked about they never put any money into the backup quarterback because, look, if we lose our starter, we're like every team in the National Football League. You lose your starter, you're done. And obviously that's changed, and it depends on who you have. You have to be a very good football team to think that we could lose our quarterback and still go on and win. And in a lot of instances, that's probably true, that you're not good enough. But I give them a great deal of credit organizationally to expending the resources to have a backup like that, where it would have been totally understandable to not have that in place. By the fact that he was in place, ready to step in a team that now has gotten to the Super Bowl.
I remember doing shows in a 2 to 3 week period after you had the game up against the Raiders where he struggled immensely. Defense was getting turnover after turnover, and they just won the game. And then the 4 drives up against Dallas, and after that it was panic, panic, panic in Philly. Can Nick Foles be the guy? What did you see a difference in the Atlanta game and also the Vikings game out of Nick Foles at the end of the year?
In the Atlanta game, we saw a comfort zone. We saw a more relaxed Nick Foles. Not early, but got into a little bit of a groove to where he thought, okay, he's confident in what he's doing. More so than maybe he should have been based on the performances you're talking about. Then after he had that, the missing, and it was all throws under 15 yards, and it worked, and you're all good and playing good defense. But then to add that element of the big plays. Yes, we can make the big plays down the field, which you're going to have to beat the New England Patriots. To watch that growth from the one game to the next told me that, yeah, he's got the confidence now to piece this thing together, and they're going to go into the New England game very, very confident.
Talking to Super Bowl winning coach Brian Billick, of course. Brian Billick is an NFL Network analyst, and you can follow him on Twitter at Coach Billick. Give me your impressions on Sean McVay, 31 years old, and he did a hell of a coaching job this year.
Brilliant job, brilliant. And I knew Sean McVay's dad when he was little because I'd worked with John McVay, his grandfather, in San Francisco. Sean, brilliant, and that's where everybody wants to go now. Everybody's going to find the next Sean McVay. You know, you can just hear the owners.
It's a copycat league. That's what it is.
Bring me the next Sean McVay. Did a brilliant job. Surrounded himself with really good people, with Wade Phillips, John Fossil. So, you know, and obviously then went out and augmented the talent that they needed to have to go with the growth of a Jared Goff. So, yeah, pressed all the right buttons, and now that's the way everybody wants to go.
In your mind, why did you become a head coach again in the National Football League?
Well, you know, I had a pretty good first marriage with Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens, and obviously had a certain level of success. Kind of felt like I kind of knew what it looked like. Not that it had to be my way, but just what the relationship needed to be, what the vision for the organization needed to be successful. The couple conversations I had the first couple of years out, teams that didn't quite, I thought, had that vision, or at least the vision they had, that I don't think I would have been the right guy to execute the vision that they had going forward. And then it got to a point now where I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Just time to move on and enjoying time with my grandkids and doing this.
What was your first reaction when you saw the contract that Gruden got?
Yeah, well, I've always said, everybody's got a price. We know what Gruden's is. And people say, well, that would get you back. I said, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll admit it right now publicly. I'm half the coach that John Gruden is. So give me half that contract and then fire me after the first year, because I really don't want to be doing this much longer. So fair enough.
Before we let you run, this game coming up on Sunday, break it down for me. How do you see this thing playing out, and what do you think the big keys are?
At the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles are good enough to do all the things that you have to do to beat the New England Patriots. We've seen it. You know, whether it comes down to, getting sacks, hits on the quarterback, which you got to have half a dozen or more. Got to keep them under third down percentage of under 35%. You can't trade touchdowns for field goals in the red zone. You can't let them run for more than 80 yards. You've got to come up with big plays. The problem is you got to do them all. We saw with Jackson. You can't do 4 out of the 5. You can't do 5 out of the 6. You got to do them all, or you're not going to beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl.
What would you have said to Doug Peterson, having experience, having won a Super Bowl before this week started? What would your message be to him?
Well, I don't know. Doug knows. It's just to be yourself.
Because he won it as a player.
Embrace the moment. Obviously, trust in the process. Focus on the process, not on the end result, because there's nothing you can do about that. It's going to be what it's going to be. Your players trust you. Trust that process. And he came from a good mentor in Andy Reid. He knew that. He'd been through it. I think he's handled it very, very well.
Last one for you before we let the Super Bowl winning coach go, and Brian Billick. You've seen how dominant Brady and Belichick have been since 2001 when they won their first Super Bowl up against the greatest show on turf. You know how short the lifespan is for an athlete and a coach in this league. Just what goes through your mind when you see that they're still here and they're still able to do it?
The likes of which we will never see again. We've never seen anything like it.
Unprecedented.
You've had some coaches with some runs, whether it be Landry or Don Shula, but with different quarterbacks, we've never seen the likes of this before. It's special. I hope people can appreciate it because it is totally unique.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it.
Great.
Also say hello to one of your former players, and Kadri Ismail. Good
Kadri, Q, good man.
Gotta love that reception that he had in that Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. There's
right,
Coach Billick.
guys.
We'll take a break. Be back right after this.